From the last superstar of the 20th century, the global chart-topping pop princess, to being portrayed as a mad woman by the paparazzi, transitioning from America's sweetheart to a prisoner of her own fame, let's delve into Britney Spears' life in a cage. In 1981, Britney Jean Spears was born into a small-town family in Mississippi, United States. Life in the town wasn't prosperous. Her mother, Lynn Spears, and father, James Parnell Spears, had modest incomes and a troubled relationship. Drinking, arguing, and physical fights were a regular occurrence, and eventually they divorced. Britney was a middle child, with an older brother and a younger sister. Early on, Britney showed a natural talent for the arts, which led her parents to make her the focal point of their ambitions. Her father, James, would proudly boast to friends that his daughter would one day make it big and buy him a boat. Britney's entertainment journey began when she was just 3 years old. Despite financial struggles, Lynn made sure to enroll her daughter in every possible arts class: dance, vocal lessons, gymnastics, and more. Meanwhile, James mostly waited for his daughter to strike it rich and often argued with Lynn about the expenses poured into Britney's training. Once, during a dance class, Britney was chosen to perform at a recital, marking the start of her child star career. With her adorable looks and sweet voice, Britney became a familiar face on local stages and in the church choir. As she would later say herself, from a very young age she always knew what she wanted: to own a stage of her own. In 1990, Disney Channel's The Mickey Mouse Club was on the lookout for young talent. Britney's mom, Lynn, took 8-year-old Britney to audition in Atlanta, where she impressively made it to the final 6. However, being deemed too young by the show's producers, she wasn't cast in the show. Instead, she was referred to Nancy Carson, a talent agent. Thanks to Nancy, Britney spent her summer break attending a performing arts school in New York to hone her craft. By 1991, at just 10 years old, she appeared on a talent show called Star Search. Though she didn't win, her brief 2-minute performance stunned audiences and began to build her name. At age 11, Britney got a second chance to audition for the Mickey Mouse Club. This time, she made the cut. The show was a breeding ground for future superstars. Alongside Britney were future legends like Christina Maria Aguilera, Ryan Thomas Gosling, and even Justin Randall Timberlake. Unfortunately, the Mickey Mouse Club was canceled after just 2 seasons. Once the show ended, Britney's career hit a pause, leading her back to Louisiana to resume a normal life at school. While she continued auditioning, the bustling streets of New York seemed to have put a hold on her dreams the moment she left. During this time, the pop music scene was dominated by boy and girl bands, and Britney was slated to join a girl group. But her mother Lynn had bigger plans. She sent a tape of Britney singing and dancing to a friend named Larry Rudolph, who introduced her to Jive Records. And that's when 16-year-old Britney's life took a turn, preparing her to make her mark on the history of the pop music scene. In 1997, Britney signed with Jive Records, a subsidiary of Sony's RCA Records. This was the same label that managed boy bands like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. The early 2000s were a golden era for boy bands, and while there were plenty of talented solo female artists, the teen pop market wasn't as receptive to solo acts. For Jive, launching Britney as a solo artist meant facing a lot of competition. But on January 12, 1999, Britney's debut album, Baby One More Time, hit the shelves. The album quickly became a defining moment of the new millennium, topping music charts in 15 countries just 2 months after its release. In Australia, it reigned at number 1 for 9 consecutive weeks, and the single sold over 10 million copies worldwide. Britney's breakout essentially elevated teen pop to new heights, creating a tidal wave across the globe. Almost overnight, she became a global phenomenon, a teen idol, capturing hearts all over the world, even in an era before the internet's widespread influence. Britney's style was geared towards a teen market, and after all, she was still a teenager herself at the time. Her second album, Britney, marked a shift away from the sweet, edgy high schooler image of her debut, moving toward a more bold and sensual aesthetic. This transformation stirred up significant controversy, coinciding with the national scandal of President Clinton's affair with a White House intern, which was making headlines everywhere. Britney, like a newly sprouted tree, found herself caught up in this cultural storm. Moreover, being a Christian, Britney had many fans who were also part of the Christian community, making the pop princess's inappropriate style choices a major sore spot for many conservative circles. In 1999, Britney began dating her former The Mickey Mouse Club co-star, who later became one of jive music's big three acts, *NSYNC's Justin Randall Timberlake. For over 2 years, the couple was seen as sweet and loving in front of cameras, only to suddenly announce their breakup in March 2002. There were many rumors about why they split, with most fingers pointing at Britney, alleging that she cheated on Justin with Wade Jeremy William Robson, one of her choreographers. However, both Britney and Robson denied these rumors. Shortly after, Justin released the song Cry Me a River, featuring a music video with a lead actress who bore a striking resemblance to Britney. The lyrics seemed to be laced with hidden messages, fueling speculation that it was about Britney's alleged infidelity. Justin later spoke openly about his ex-girlfriend on various shows, adding fuel to the fire.
Justin Timberlake is in the house, and I just want to ask you one question. Did you Britney Spears? Yes or no?
Oh, man.
Come on, man.
Okay, I did it. No.
Yeah.
Years later, Justin publicly apologized to Britney on Instagram. But after that incident, Britney's life was anything but smooth. In January 2004, Britney was spotted dancing intimately with her childhood friend Jason Allen Alexander in Las Vegas. The next day, after an all-night party, the two decided to get married on the spot. But just 55 hours later, the marriage was annulled on the grounds of being a mistake made under impaired judgment. In 2021, Jason's lawyer revealed in an interview that while Britney proposed the idea of marriage, it was her mother, Lynn Spears, who swooped in with a team of lawyers to Vegas, forcing the couple to cancel their marriage. That same year, Kevin Earl Federline came into the picture. Kevin, a Hollywood bar dancer who once performed with Justin, hit it off instantly with Britney. She soon invited him on a trip to Europe, and the two fell madly in love. Just 3 months later, they tied the knot. But from the start, this marriage seemed doomed. The media dug into Kevin's past and discovered that he actually had a girlfriend at the time, who was pregnant with their second child. This revelation earned Britney a new title, Homewrecker. A year later, Britney and Kevin welcomed their first son, Sean Preston. As a new mother, Britney began to step away from the spotlight, living a seemingly ordinary family life in her new Maryland home. But this tranquility was short-lived, as the media just couldn't wait. Around 2005, a candid photo of Britney Spears' private life could fetch up to $1 million. It was once said by an Australian paparazzo, "If I can snap one photo of Britney, I can buy a house." Drawn by the promise of huge payouts, paparazzi armed themselves with every camera lens imaginable, eager to catch a glimpse of her. But, of course, no one wanted just one photo. These lenses were no longer just magnifying glasses, but microscopes. Before, Britney had been criticized as a wild child pop idol or Justin's girlfriend. But once she had kids, the media found a new target, her role as a mother. One paparazzo managed to capture a shot of Britney driving with her child on her lap rather than in a car seat, while Kevin sat in the passenger seat. The media quickly jumped to brand her an unfit mother. During an interview, Britney explained the situation. She was at a Starbucks grabbing a coffee when suddenly a swarm of paparazzi surrounded her. In a panic, she drove off with her child in her arms to escape. Not long after the car seat incident, the media swarmed Britney again, causing her to stumble and almost drop her baby, Sean. Traumatized, Britney broke down crying in a nearby restaurant, and even that moment was snapped by a paparazzo. The next day, the headlines blared about Britney dropping her baby, claiming she was more concerned about spilling her drink than holding on to her child. In 2006, Britney became pregnant again and gave birth to her second child with Kevin. By then, Their marriage had reached its breaking point. Britney filed for divorce and requested full custody of their kids. The very next day, Kevin filed for sole custody as well, and the infamous custody battle began. Later on, Britney's mother wrote in her book about Britney's fragile state during that time. She mentioned that Britney was suffering from postpartum depression and that her mental health was far from stable, a state that was exacerbated by relentless paparazzi harassment. 2007 arrived, a year that would send Britney spiraling into chaos, but also the last year she would experience a semblance of freedom. As a child, whenever her parents fought and drank, Britney would seek refuge at her Aunt Sandra's house. Even after achieving fame, she often publicly expressed her gratitude to Sandra at award ceremonies, viewing her as a second mother. But early that year, Sandra passed away from illness, leaving Britney devastated. At the same time, her custody battle with Kevin grew increasingly contentious. To make matters worse, an ex-boyfriend, Isaac Cohen, emerged out of the blue, spilling details of their private life to the media, aiming to cash in and make a profit. Britney's mental state reached a breaking point. Under the relentless pressure of being hounded day and night, she walked into a hair salon, shaved her head in front of everyone, and made headlines worldwide. The incident shook the entertainment industry to its core. Later, the salon owner tried to auction off Britney's hair online, setting the starting price at $1 million. On February 21st, 2007, Kevin urgently requested a hearing for full custody of their two children. Britney, upon hearing the news, drove to where Kevin was in San Fernando, only to be shut out. Then, at a gas station, she found herself yet again surrounded by paparazzi. Unable to bear it any longer, Britney grabbed an umbrella and smashed it against a photographer's car window. Ironically, in 2017, the same photographer whose car window was shattered put Britney's green umbrella up for auction online, asking for $100,000. Just like that, the former sweet pop princess became labeled by the media and the public as a drunken, unstable figure who seemed to be constantly in and out of psychiatric facilities. Britney grew further apart from those around her, almost finding no one she could trust. She fired her manager, Larry Rudolph, a friend of her mother, Lynn, alleging he had forced her into rehab. Instead, she brought in a new manager and enlisted her friend Sam Lutfi as a producer. The most intriguing part of this struggle for control was actually Britney's parents. First, her father James loudly proclaimed that his daughter was ill and needed treatment, publicly siding with the fired Larry. Then, her mother Lynn involved herself in the custody battle over Britney's two children, collaborating privately with Larry. Everyone seemed to want to control Britney. To explain her recent troubles, Britney wrote a letter to her fans. However, the media twisted it, taking parts out of context and only using selective excerpts. At the 2007 VMA performance, Britney faced criticism over her costume and body shape, receiving a torrent of public mockery. Just before going on stage, the host of the event openly ridiculed Britney and her two kids.
25 years old, and she's already accomplished everything she's going to accomplish in her life. It's mind-blowing, and she's so grown up. She's a mother, you know, it's crazy. It's weird to think that just a few years ago on this very show, she was this, like, sweet, innocent little girl in slutty clothes riding around with a python.
The outfit and shoes Britney wore for that performance were rumored to have been tampered with. After that night, mockery from all across America rained down on her. Then in October, she lost custody of her children and was only granted one night of visitation per week. As the media put it, everyone was waiting for this 25-year-old to self-destruct. On January 8, 2008, Britney violated visitation orders by refusing to return her children to Kevin and locking herself and the kids in a bathroom. Kevin called the police, and she was taken to the hospital under the pretext of an unknown virus infection. On January 31st, Britney was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, and her father, James, applied for temporary conservatorship. This type of conservatorship is usually designed for people who cannot take care of themselves, like those suffering from Alzheimer's, and who are unable to manage their own assets. Once it takes effect, it's nearly impossible for the person to escape. James and Britney's team pressured her into voluntarily accepting the conservatorship by using her children as leverage. Subsequently, James and his lawyer, Andrew Wallet, gained control over Britney's finances. The conservatorship later transitioned from temporary to permanent. After taking control, James fired Felicia, Britney's assistant who had been with her since before she was famous, filed a restraining order against Britney's producer, Sam, and brought back her former manager, Larry, whom Britney had fired. Under such restrictions, Britney became her father's cash machine for 13 long years. She was not allowed to access or manage her income directly, could not draft or modify her will, hire a lawyer, change or end the conservatorship, get married, or even get pregnant. Her calls and meetings with friends were heavily restricted. Media interviews could only be conducted in the presence of James or the conservatorship team, and Britney was regularly subjected to evaluations by lawyers, doctors, and other professionals. The only small win was that Britney got joint custody of her children, but she still had to pay Kevin thousands of dollars in alimony every month. During her residency in Las Vegas, Britney earned around $1 million a week, but James would take a 1.5% cut along with additional income commissions and bonuses. After paying staff, lawyers, and the conservatorship team, Britney was left with just $2,000 of disposable income per week. In essence, she was funding the very people who imprisoned her. They could change her medication at will, install listening devices in her room, forcibly admit her to psychiatric facilities, make her work against her will, isolate her from her social circle, and even prevent her from removing the birth control device in her body. Even buying a cup of Starbucks required James's approval, and it wasn't always granted. Meanwhile, her father used Britney's money to purchase properties for himself and Britney's sister. Over the years, Britney did not go down without a fight. With the help of her friends, she secretly contacted a lawyer, clearly stating that she was fully aware of her situation and mentally capable of handling her affairs, therefore not needing a conservatorship. This lawyer took her case to federal court, arguing that Britney's personal rights were being violated. However, the judge rejected the case on the grounds that Britney did not have the right to hire her own lawyer and would need a medical evaluation, thus sending the case back to state court. The state court appointed Sam Ingham as her lawyer. Britney was not satisfied with this choice. But the problem was that if she wanted to hire her own attorney, the fees would need to be approved by the court and paid through her estate. Since James, as the actual controller of her finances, had the authority to deny this expense, it was practically impossible for Britney to navigate around him. Britney also tried to have her conservator changed to her mother, Lynn, but the request was denied. Ingham, her court-appointed lawyer, even claimed that Britney had never expressed a desire to change her conservator and had signed the petition under coercion. It's hard to imagine that an international star in the 21st century could be so openly silenced and controlled, like a prisoner serving a sentence, and this imprisonment lasted 13 years. In 2014, social media platforms like Instagram started booming. Britney often shared posts of her life with her children on her social accounts, and public understanding of her went beyond tabloid rumors and gossip columns. People began to pay more attention to the issue of her conservatorship. Her fans compiled Britney's work over these years. Guest TV appearances for albums, 3 tours, a 4-year Las Vegas residency, brand endorsements, and reality TV shows. Does this sound like a person who is incapable of self-care or decision-making? Clearly not. The UK's Daily Mail published a handwritten letter by Britney in which she detailed her father's control over her. Fans even noticed subtle cries for help in some of Britney's Instagram posts.
Sagittarius, I'm very keen on freedom. I love freedom. I love independence. I don't like to be tied.
Some people commented on her posts saying things like, "If you need help, wear yellow in your next video." The very next day, Britney appeared in a video wearing a yellow top. There were even fans who formed dedicated research groups and podcasts to analyze every detail of her posts. In 2019, Britney suddenly announced that she was canceling her upcoming shows, citing her father's severe illness as the reason. A few months later, news broke that Britney had checked into a psychiatric hospital. The day after this was reported, an anonymous recording swept across the internet.
Hi there. I cannot disclose who I am. I used to be a paralegal for an attorney that worked with Britney's conservatorship. I am no longer with them. Britney has been in the mental facility since mid-January. Of course, I'm just a paralegal. I haven't had any contact with her, but from what I understand, this was not a decision she made.
An online movement to free Britney gradually began to gain momentum, its influence spreading rapidly. Celebrities, magazines, and fans rallied together, raising their voices to demand freedom for Britney. Supporters held signs and chanted slogans as they took to the streets in protest. During this time, Britney's ex-husband Kevin filed a restraining order against James, claiming that James had a physical altercation with their children. In September 2019, James stepped down temporarily as Britney's conservator due to illness, appointing a substitute, yet he continued to control her finances. After James stepped back, Britney's mother Lynn joined the conservatorship team, citing concerns for her daughter's health. Once involved, Lynn used Britney's money to buy herself a $2 million mansion, which required an additional $150,000 a year in maintenance expenses from Britney. With internal shifts and a reallocation of interests, the cracks in the conservatorship team began to show. At the 2020 hearing, Britney filed once more to terminate the conservatorship, though it was rejected. This time her finances were transferred to be managed by a trust company and a court-appointed accountant. A glimmer of hope appeared for Britney. Soon after, her lawyer and manager also resigned. By August 2021, Britney finally regained control over her finances, and the first thing she did with her newfound freedom was to buy her very first tablet. On November 12th, Britney's conservatorship was officially terminated by the Supreme Court, and after being confined for 13 years, this superstar was finally free. In June 2022, Britney married her boyfriend Sam Asghari, who is 12 years her junior. Just 14 months later, the couple separated, packaged by the record label, hounded by public scrutiny, used by her own parents and monitored by her management team. These would be the main chapters of Britney's life before turning 40 if she were to write an autobiography. Britney once said that she opened her heart to the whole world, but never had the chance to find a place for it to call home.